อดลงขวบลงอะไรลงหมดเลยอยู่ในยุ้งไม่เหลือเลยดิรอสุดจีน
Are you ready?
รอสุดจีนตอนนี้รอสุดจีนก็อาจารย์ไปก่อนสุดจีน
You can take this off.
ปีใหม่
Like in these ones, you can take it off.
มัน
No?
ไม่ยอมมือกันตีลูกนี่ไม่ยอม
I want to. I should get it there, or I should.
We go there now.
Alright, okay. I will take this stuff once I get ready. Yeah.
You can talk straightforward because there will be no more translation
Oh.
to save time.
What is this one?
That's my thing.
Oh, you can take it.
Let's check that out. That's my
Two?
yeah. That one is for my remote control.
Okay, I'll do that later. After you finish, please copy on the desktop too, okay?
I don't know. My one is very good, but let's see. Because
Can you give me a piece of paper?
because I did not prepare anything specially because I didn't know what.
You've got a PowerPoint as well.
I don't know. I just brought an old one.
Old
I don't know whether it fits. I was not sure. Pam, where is the computer? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm not sure what I have done.
Yours?
I don't know. Maybe this one. Maybe no. I don't know. Maybe my one. I don't know. Maybe probably not. No, it's not mine. Somebody else.
I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Can you see?
Maybe this one, but maybe I will refresh it.
ดูให้หน่อยสิคะท่านทำไมของท่านไม่ขึ้น
Hello. How this one? How do we get it here? Yeah. Yeah. Here. It's not control panel, computer. This control panel, maybe click here. Oh, it's doing it. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I just talk too long.
Oh, no, it's okay. Come on. Oh, it's working. Maybe here, this computer. Yeah. I think we go from here, and then computer. Oh, they should come here, but it has not come.
understand now, somebody can translate
Or somebody else can.
later. Yeah. Some of them are very good.
How are we doing time? How we manage the time?
What do you think? We can make it until 4 or 4:30.
I talk until 4 or what?
Until you finish. But the class will finish at 5.
Ah, okay.
So we can leave the time for some questions.
Shall we ask questions now? So then it will be easier so I can build up on it. Yeah?
You want them to ask
That's
questions
better, no?
first?
Let's see.
Let them ask questions first?
I think it's better, no? Because then we know where they are. Because,
Okay.
yeah.
What about your presentation?
We
Not too long?
No, we will see few minutes when it's open. Let's see, not that one. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
วันนี้ก็มาถึงการเดียวใครมีคำถามอะไรเดียวไว้เลยสัญญาณนี่ค่ะหรือจะถามแบบนั้นเองจะมาดูราคาเดี๋ยวจะดูกัน
I think we can have some questions first.
So they can ask me too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
โอเคเมื่อพูดทางเดียวบอกว่ามันจะต่อเนื่องจะดีก็คือใครมีคำถามอะไรก็ถามแล้วก็เดนเนี่ยหรืออะไรเกี่ยวกับอีสนะก็ถามท่านได้เผื่อแล้วท่านก็จะได้ไปเชื่อมกันได้ดีกับสิ่งที่ท่านอาจจะเตรียมมานิดหน่อยเนาะโอเคค่ะท่านวิสรุตท่านวีรศักดิ์อะไรนะที่เตรียมคำถามไว้นะมีคำถามไหม
เมื่อกี้เนี้ยคอนเซิร์นของเขา your story
เชื่อไหมทุกคน
Damein, excuse me, may I share my opinion about the story that you told me? In my opinion, already that your President Obama, he is a president, and Damein is a religious leader. Absolutely, there are different ways of life. If you don't do anything, another way of the president, I think is the Nobel Prize, and he cannot to receive because for the Syrian war is that give the opportunity of him to get this prize. I think it's very, very different way of that two person, absolutely. But the definition of goal of that, the two persons like to keep a peace for the all nation.
Please sit here.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not sure if it was a question or a comment. I think it was a comment. You said President Obama is a president, Dalai Lama is a religious leader, so they have different responsibilities.
Yes.
I think. And so we can't compare them, or you don't understand if you think we can compare them or we can't compare them. I'm not sure what the point was really, but
I try to explain that you have the same goal, but it's different way to get to achieve that goal.
to get, okay, yes. They both Nobel Peace Prize. So they both believe in peace. They both support peace. But they have different ways to get there. So the question is, which is the best way? And although President Obama is the President of the United States, the Dalai Lama was also the political ruler of Tibet until the Chinese made him leave. So the Dalai Lama was a kind of president in Tibet. And the Dalai Lama, as I showed, is a bit like President Obama, because sometimes he talks about peace, sometimes he says we have to do our duty, and we have to use force. So that's why I put them together. Because even though you might think they're far apart, in fact, they come quite close in their opinions about war. And in fact, the Dalai Lama has been criticized by many Tibetans, many younger Tibetans, who say that he's been too pessimist. And they say that the Tibetan culture has been destroyed by the Chinese because the Dalai Lama did nothing. And they say the Dalai Lama should have been more forceful, stronger in resistance to the Chinese.
It's a very good question.
Right now, in Tibet, Dalai Lama cannot be in Tibet now.
No, he cannot.
Yes.
He cannot. Before he left, he could have stayed. Or he could have supported terrorism. He could have supported resistance to the Chinese. There were many Tibetans who wanted to fight the Chinese because they said they're invading our country. We should fight them. The Dalai Lama said, no, don't fight them. So now they say that was a bad decision. The way of peace has done nothing. They say, look now at our situation. We've lost the country.
But if they could have fought, maybe it's already over. Because no way they fight defend.
Yeah, it's very hard to fight the Chinese.
Right.
So that's a practical decision. Sometimes they could have said, it's better to fight and die. To do something heroic. We can't win, but we can try and defend our country. And it's better to die in that way than just be thrown out of your country or be crushed by the Chinese, suffer, be tortured. And now you see many Tibetan monks burn themselves in protest because they feel in a hopeless situation. So, you know, which was the right decision? Did the way of peace work? Doesn't look like it works. Would the way of force have worked? Maybe not. But you might have achieved a bit more than doing nothing. So, you know, it's an interesting question. I think it's an open question. Some people see it one way, some people see it.
Yeah. I should start? Okay.
Yeah, you may start now.
Okay. Okay. But it's very interesting. The question came out. It's good, yeah. How do you get into the show?
Huh?
Show. Slideshow.
Okay,
Slideshow.
but maybe you
No, this.
a slideshow.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Hi.
No, just no the signal.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and venerable monks, and Professor Kyon, and the audience, and thank you very much. And I'm very thankful, like Professor Damein Kyon, to venerable Dr. Professor Hansa for organizing this, and also Pam for kind of giving us an opportunity. I hope you can understand, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And what is fascinating for me is this place. Like if you look around, kind of, it has the east-west. I see there are two Thai monks, very prominent. One has passed away, other one is living. Venerable Paito. And it's very interesting, the ideas. And then what is interesting is that side, one Catholic nun, and then leading Protestant American theologian and activist, Martin Luther King. And then on this side you see Mandela, who is representing another continent. And actually Damein already mentioned about, where terrorists become transformed to, from terrorist to freedom fighter to an acceptable diplomat and statesman. Now, that's a good example, kind of the transition from terrorism to a leading politician. I mean, he is in equal standing to Obama or Dalai Lama or Gandhi or anybody else. It's a kind of very interesting observation. And then Aung San Suu Kyi represents women here, our neighbor in Burma, and now her case is a kind of activist and become a politician, and then Gandhi and Dalai Lama. And quite interesting, actually here you see that one monk and Hindu point of view, a woman and a South African, and then Christian nun. So it's quite interesting, and I think I think Professor Keon mentioned this distinction between war and peace. It's like two sides of a coin. The boundary is not very clear. Where, war ends, peace begins, and then peace ends and war begins. That's like a yin yang in the, yin yang, the yin yang, yeah, like, the yin and yang, the relationship, we could easily see it's peace and war. Like the yin yang, maybe the dark spot may be war, and the white spot may be peace. So it's a kind of relationship. I mean, think about Thailand. Like now in Bangkok is maybe where the darker side is coming with protests and so on. But in a few days' time it will disappear. Again the peace will come and we will be able to go to UN Conference Center. Yeah? It's a kind of also dependent origination, kind of. It's quite interesting. And another thing I think came about Professor Keon, I'm just saying it before I started it. What is interesting is that some of the ideas that he mentioned about war and violence, and in particular ethics of war. And I have been thinking in the same way, like Professor Keon. And Professor Keon already mentioned about the theories of war, just war theory. Where you can wage a war and also justify it, and also tell that is the kind of more righteous thing to do, or the fairness in how you fight. And I think in Buddhism that one is called Dharma Yuddha. Dharma Yuddha. That's the terminology that we use, and actually it comes from the Hindu tradition, because we don't have that same idea, Dharma Yuddha, in Buddhism. Of course, the only text we have the notion of Dharma Yuddha is Ummaki Jataka. The Jataka story about the wise gentleman called Mahaushadha, the great medicine man. Remember the tunnel story. In the tunnel story, that Ummaki Jataka has this story that, there was they was going to have a battle, and then on that occasion, that the oppositional party, it's called Kevaka, he says that we should not fight. We should use the strategy, kind kind of indirect way of non-harming way of using to win the war. See, in Indian tradition, he used this traditional way because the Kevada was an older man, the older man. Mahinda was the young man. So the older man suggests that maybe we should use a strategy, dharmic strategy, and so that we can say that we can say like this: the pandit, the advisor, who in the traditional custom when we meet, we pay respect, yeah. We pay respect to the person. So in the meeting, we'll say that if the young person respect the older, and then the young person lose the war because he bow down. And when it came to the meeting, what happened was that wise man thought that there is a way to win this because, of course, in the traditional situation, you bow down to the older man. And now he knew this cunning strategy of the older gentleman. And what he did was he brought a jewel with him. Young man brought a jewel. So when they met, what happened was that older man was a little bit greedy. He had these weaknesses, and he forgot his advice. So before he bowed down, when he came in, when they meeting, he dropped that jewel on the floor. It's a very precious jewel. And the older man forgot it, and he bowed down to pick it up. So kind of they say that the battle is finished, because kind of winning the war, knowing the enemy's strategy, and then undoing it, undercutting it. So it's quite easy. That's the only one we have in the Buddhist tradition. Say a kind of, actually it's kind of using non-violent means. Now, if we go into some aspects of what Professor Damein mentioned, like for example, using devices like upaya kaushalya, what you call in the Mahinda tradition called upaya kaushalya. Kaushalya means skillfulness, ability, and upaya means ability to use strategies, various devices. Yeah, and now the line between truth and the lie is very blurred in the Buddhism. So actually, upaya kaushalya itself can be called actually lying, using cunning strategies. Yeah. So I think the question of whether something is 100% good and 100% bad, and whether the boundary between violence and the non-violence is, I think, a little bit like a yin-yang, in the Buddhist perspective. So it's not, I'm not saying that absolutely there's something called non-violence and not absolutely violence. I think at least when it comes to upaya kaushalya, that's what we get it, I think. And now some of the ideas that we get from Professor Keon about the use of compassion. Compassion in the, so we got the example here from the Tibetan Lama in Rinpoche, saying that to prevent these people committing more crimes, we have to prevent this. So prevention of war. Yeah? Prevention of war, so you eliminate the troublemakers early. So, for example, Hitler could have been assassinated early, and they could have prevented going to the war. Yeah, there were strategies to do that, but they couldn't. And also in the Buddhist story, they say that there's a story that Bodhisattva was going in the ship, and so one thief was in the ship. And that thief intended to kill all the other people, and then the wise man, Bodhisattva, realized it, and then Bodhisattva had compassion to him, and saying that, if he kill the 500 people, he become very bad. But so the Bodhisattva said, I want to minimize it. So it's kind of utilitarian idea, usefulness, or sometimes called upaya kaushalya. So that you minimalize the you minimize the impact. So the Buddhist way is called compassionate killing. Killing with compassion. So there I think it's a very interesting case. Of course, it's a Mahayana idea, but I think it is not alien to Theravada Buddhism. Of course, it's not articulated in Theravada Buddhism, but not alien. Like, for example, I don't want to get into trouble. Think about the Bhikkhu Kittibuddha. Bhikkhu Kittibuddha, who was in Mahasthat in the temple next to Mahachakalongkorn University in Bangkok. Yeah, Kittibuddha was Kittibuddha. Yeah, and when during the Vietnam War, he was afraid that the communists in Vietnam will invade Thailand. He was afraid that actually, if the communism grows in Vietnam, Thailand will become a victim, because it happened to Laos, it happened to Cambodia, and of course Burma was communist in some ways, and then Thailand was the only one nation which was not communist, and at that time he said that killing communists is not evil. He actually even distorted the Buddha's words. He used an example about Buddha talks about how to discipline horses, and he just kind of misinterpreted it, and he said that Buddha asked us to kill, something like that. Buddha advised us to kill, which is wrong, which is not accurate. But nevertheless, he basically, Kittibuddha was saying that killing communists is not evil, basically. Yeah, he's saying that why? Because the king and the Thai nation and Buddhism is in threat. So when it is in a threat, you have to take action. So he basically made a very controversial point of view, which is, I think, add to some of the thoughts that Prof mentioned. So there are fascinating grounds about in the Buddhist tradition in all countries, whether it's Japan, Korea, Sri Lanka, and so on. Think about China. The Shaolin monks, these monks in China, Shaolin monks, actually that arose to defend the temples. They defend the temple resources and kind of the art of developing your skills and meditation to be fighters and so on. The Shaolin monks came from the idea that we have to protect our Buddhist things. And the same way in Japan, and somewhat in Japan, I think there was a monastic rivalry, various religious groups around the 12th and 13th century, like Tendai and Nichiren in particular. They had a monastic rivalry, so they had monastic armies. Now, there's an interesting case in Korea. Korea would have been lost completely without Buddhist monks. Those Buddhist monks in Korea are the ones who defended Korea. And at that time, in the Joseon dynasty, Korea was invaded by the outsiders. And at that time, the state was confusion. And the monks were not allowed to come to the city, because in Korea, monks live in the mountains. And because in Korea, the state was confusion, Buddhists were persecuted. So the monks were not allowed to come in. Actually, it was the monks, if you go to Dongkuk University in Korea, that's the Buddhist university, if you go underground and if you go down from the station, underground, and if you climb up the steps, you will see on your left-hand side, you will see a statue of a monk. And that monk is the head of the warrior monk. And he is the one who defended Korea against the enemies. And then, the monks got the armies, and monks defended the Korean nation, and then the king allowed them to they incorporated into his army after they freed the nation. So it's very interesting, this idea of Buddhist monks, how they respond to at times of trouble. Yeah. So now these are some of the interesting things, and what I will do is I will. What time is it now?
15 minutes to 4. 15 to 4.
54, yeah. So I will go a little bit to kind of develop on some of the ideas that I kind of think is very relevant, and some of the relationship along this line. And I see that war is a problem, it's a controversy, and war doesn't go with Buddhism, no matter for what. It doesn't go with Buddhist teaching, so that's very clear. But I think when you look at it, that the Buddhist texts, however, even the Buddha, of course, advised not to fight war, but nevertheless, he did not go and actually prevented violence. So he advised them, like even when the Buddha's relatives were fighting, he advised them, but he did not go and stood in the middle and say, don't do that. Or the good example is Ajasattu, the king Ajasattu, he sent his ministers to the Buddha and say, the Vajjis, I want to eliminate them. The ministers that came, and then Buddha said that as long as they are righteous, as long as they have harmony, as long as they are democratic and do everything, you cannot defeat them. But he did not say you should not do it. See, he said that he always had a conditional one. As long as these people are good, you cannot defeat them. So it's an if one. If they are good, they cannot be defeated. But it doesn't say you shouldn't fight with them. This is very different. The conditional one to ought to. Ought to. Whether we should fight or we shouldn't fight. Buddha should have easily said, you must not fight. You must not defeat the Vajras. He should have said, if I were or you were asked, you will say, we should not. Why? Because they are good kings. We will say that. But Buddha didn't say that. He could have easily said that, we should avoid it. But what he said is, he said something different. He said that as long as they are righteous, you cannot defeat them. So his emphasis was something different. He didn't say that you should avoid from violence. What he said is that what is important is Dhamma. The most important is Dhamma, the righteousness, the justice, the fairness, and that's very interesting. So the Buddha's attitude to non-violence and the Buddha's real action in the war and how should be in more ways is quite complicated, quite complex one. And I see Buddha would have easily said, you must not fight at all. He could have said it, yeah? But he didn't say that. At least the text, we don't get that one. So it's very interesting. So that leaves a lot of space among us to various nations to develop it and argue it in different ways. So it's a controversial practice. So there are some ideas here. Can we get these first slides off, these three? Possible?
You enter
No. This light.
the light. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think if you can get it, you can see it better. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I
Very
see.
well, sir. So here, these are kind of broader themes. Do faiths justify violence? You could say that does Buddhism justify violence? That could be easily generalized. Does Buddhism justify violence? I don't think Buddhism justify violence, but Buddhism may have say that in some cases violence may be instrumental. Violence in defense can create peace. Like for example, think about a case that where the Buddha says that what will you do? A boy, you have one child and you are the parent, and the child has a kind of bone or something in your throat, what will you do? Will you take it out, or will you let that be there? Because the bone in the mouth is painful, but of course when you take it, it hurts a little bit. Yeah? So you could pull it out. And as a parent, that's what you should do. You should pull it out. But also, because of little pain, you can leave it there. But then what will happen is the child gets sick more, and it will cause damage in the throat, and eventually, because you did not act, because the parent did not do what he's supposed to do, the child can die. Yeah? So we can use this for the war situation, terrorists and the crimes, and so even the question that Damein asked about the Chakravarti king, whether she should have 4-4 army, whether the Buddhist sect should have a military, whether the Buddhists have a police and so on. I think these are practical issues, but I think Buddhism will allow to have them, I think. Because Buddha himself did not say, not any of the kings, that they shouldn't have armies. He did not say any of them that they shouldn't have, because being a king, by definition, whether it's a Chakravarti or not, by definition, by very nature of being a king, is power. Being royal means power, and that power we could see it in two ways. One is spiritual power, which is called righteousness, whatever that you have cultivated, even the Chakravarti king, the righteousness that you have cultivated. But that's only private. It's a private dimension. So the ruler, whoever that may be, need external things to implement that spiritualness in a broader framework. So the police, army and so on, external paraphernalia, external gadgets, which kind of show other people that he is powerful. So I would argue, by definition, a king or authority, whether it's a Buddhist or not, you need this military, the weapons and so on. It's a kind of important paraphernalia. So by definition, that's what defines a king. That's what defines, that's what the important symbols of kinship. So I see this, the Chakravarti, cases that having those things around them force others to subordinate. And so I have the idea that the might, the appearance of having the might, appearance of having the power, enables someone to impose the Dhamma, or facilitate the existence of Dhamma. So a good example is Ashoka. Of course we learn about it. Ashoka, worked other way around. He was very powerful in the beginning, but then he used Dhamma to kind of sober it and make it much more, kind of healthy and nice. So there's a kind of issue is very complex. The role of violence and the role of military, police, and how much they can be instrumental, and whether the Buddhists should have, or whether the Buddhists should go to the military, and all these questions are our questions of our time, and I think we need some scrutiny. But I think the issue is very complex. Now, Sri Lanka, there are many cases of violence, and I think it came earlier than the Damein mentioned about this Buddhist chaplaincy, and now, of course, Damein mentioned about 2005 about the lady appointed as Buddhist chaplaincy in America, but it happened even in the UK. Now, a Sri Lankan gentleman, actually who used to be a Buddhist monk earlier, has been appointed as the Buddhist chaplain to British Army. So it's a really professional one. So now there is quite a nice interesting development. So appointing, the Buddhist person as the, but I think from the British point of view, it's an inclusive approach. It's probably, I'm reading into it, but I'm assuming that, say, there are Buddhists in the British Army, so they need a little bit proper guidance and training and formalized, and also recognition of Buddhism as a religion. Because in Britain there are 6 religions. Kind of recognize 6 religions in Britain, in schools and so on. When religion is taught in school, because England or United Kingdom has a state church, state religion, and the state religion is Church of England, Anglican Church. So because state religion, the Buddhism and other religions are taught. So the Christianity, Judaism, and Islam is taught. And then from Asian tradition, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Sikhism. 3 Indian religions are taught. And now, probably from that approach, I assume, I never have asked anybody, but I assume that, British Armed Forces decided to have a Buddhist chaplain. So, about maybe 2-3 years ago, he was appointed, only after the American Army. But anyway, so these are the developments. Now, the problem part, I wanted to ask Hansa about this. Last night, I watched the TV program. I was in the hotel. I watched Channel 4 and Channel 7, I think PBS. It may be around 8 o'clock or 8:30 or so. And there was a lot of, all in Thai, but there was a discussion about the protest in Bangkok, but also about the human rights, International Court of Justice in Netherlands, about the dispute between, about the temple with the Cambodian border and the Thai border. And I did not understand much, but I saw soldiers. I don't know whether they are Thai soldiers or Cambodian soldiers, but they were carrying missiles or something, is the truth. And one monk with a purple robe came and blessed them, and they touched each soldier's face like this. Kind of, he was going touching the soldier. I don't know whether it's a Thai monk or Cambodian monk, but this happened. I saw it last night on TV. But I don't know whether it's a Cambodian or not. But it's really interesting. But I haven't seen that before. But it was on the TV program yesterday. So here. Of course, to what extent the monks can support army is problematic, because Buddha is very clear on that. There's no doubt, because Buddha has very clear on that, and he said that you must not even watch an army parade. It's one of the very clear. It's not like saying it's better, but it's saying you must not. So. We are not supposed to even to watch a military parade, let alone to bless or touch the soldiers or something. So definitely that one is a very clear one. And now in history, one of the important one is Sri Lanka. Here in this second point, it's an early story in the 2nd century BC. King Duttadamani, you know about it. Duttadamani, he was a Sri Lankan king, and he had a kind of Tamil problem, not in the same form. Sri Lanka had a civil war in recent years, starting from 1983 until 2009, for 26 years. And now it was a dispute between Sinhala majority and the Tamil minority. Now, Sinhala majority, Sinhala is the ethnic group, the people of the lion, yeah, and the Sinhalese population is about 74 of the population, so that means about 25 or 26 is not Sinhalese, yeah. And now out of this 74% of the population, the Buddhists are about 70%. So almost all, little bit Christians among the Sinhalese, but almost majority of them are Buddhist. So the very close link between the Sinhala majority and the Buddhists in Sri Lanka. And then the Tamil minority altogether will be about 18%, 1/8. And now out of that, the Christians may be about 5% of that. So let alone about 15, maybe 12%, maybe 12% are Tamil Hindus. You know, so some people say it's a war between Hinduism and Buddhism, and I don't think so. But there are other issues. But nevertheless, there was a war, very serious one. But this ethnic thing, like Sinhala and Tamil has a long history. In 3rd century BC, you know, so the prince, young prince, waged war, and the text called Mahavansa. Mahavansa is a chronicle written in the 6th century Common Era in Sri Lanka. It's a history book, one of the important history from a Buddhist point of view. Want to tell about the history of Buddhism from India to Sri Lanka, and the major figure in that text, Mahavansa, is Damein. That's the name of the king. And there's a story that say that, I mean, it's very clearly said. Let's see. I think the quotation I may have it here. Yeah. So the Mahavansa has 37 chapters, and it's not canonical, it's not in the Pali canon, but very important in shaping the thinking of the people. And now in this one, important one is one of these passages. Let's see, it mentioned about the battle, and now this part is very important. You know, this chapter 25, verse 3. Now this prince wanted to fight the invader. The invader was the Chola king, the Elara, who came from South India and ruled 40 years in Sri Lanka. And actually the text itself says that the Tamil king was very righteous. He was ruling justly, the Tamil king. But then the young prince from the south came. He wanted to chase him away from Sri Lanka and to make the Sinhala, one kingdom. And the story says that before he go to the war, it says that he is presented as a little bit Buddhist, and this is what he says to the monks: "Give us that we may treat them with honor, bhikkhus who shall go on with us, since the sight of bhikkhus is blessing and protection for us." So here, kind of early occurrence of the Buddhist chaplaincy, if you want to term it, in some way. Of course, it's not only one person as a chaplain, but he is asking 500 to take with him. Yeah? And of course, this one is not Buddha's word. It's quite contradictory, and this against the Buddha's word. But we can see it from a different side. And if you look at it from here, as a king, he made a request to the monk. And now you know that if our king here asks and tells Venerable Hansa, I wanted to have 500 monks stay in my temple, my royal palace, Venerable Hansa cannot refuse it. Yeah? Because it's power, yeah? So you have to oblige him. Now this case, probably once he was asked, I don't think Buddhist monks were able to refuse it, if you take literally. And also you can see another side is that this word, this word here, we may treat them with honor. We may treat them with honor. So that sounds like a pious person, may not be different from a Thai Buddhist. He wanted to, I wanted to have, I want to fight this war, but still I want to have a righteous life during the war. So I kind of earn merit while doing it. So it's kind of idea, punya, being able, and then the words here, shall go on with us, kind of idea that Buddhist monks should accompany him. And then the word like sight of bhikkhus, kind of the looking at the bhikkhus is very beneficial. So these kind of very, you could argue that Kim was very pious king, at least in the words. And you could argue that his aim also very innocent in some ways, because he he's a devout Buddhist, and so he wanted to take the monks with him. Of course, it may be contradictory. Yeah? And then the problematic part comes later, this later section. And after the war, he was very sad and unhappy, and like Ashoka. And it is interesting, this kind of Buddhist idea is that if you do something wrong, you cannot get rid of it. This is very kind of inherent in the tradition, whether for good cause or bad cause, if you do something, you suffer. And now the idea that killing can never make you happy is very strong. And both in Asoka's case and Damein case, it comes really clear. And he was very sad after being in the war. And the monks come, 8 monks know his vision, and come, and they tell these words to the king. Now, this is quite contradictory. This is not Buddhist and what we know. This is not Buddha's word. And there cannot be any justification of this anywhere in the Pali Canon. But still it's in the text. It says that from this deed arises no hindrance thy way to heaven. And these are words of 8 Arahants. The 8 Arahants tell them, you have done a lot of things in the war, but it doesn't prevent you going to heaven. Yeah? So they advise him. And then say, only 1.5 human beings have been slain here by thee. That's the problematic sentence. So the thousands of people who died in the war say 1.5. Now that's very problematic. How could an Arahant say that? That's the problematic problem. And then say, the one had come unto 3 refuge. The count in 1.5 is one person had the 3 refuge, and then the other had taken himself 5 precepts. So the 3 refuge and 5 precepts. Yeah? So only those things are the full human beings. Yeah? All the others are not full human beings. Yeah? And unbelievers and men of evil life were the rest. So this is quite radical, quite controversial. Yeah? Not more to be esteemed than beasts. This word is interesting. So like thinking that enemy is lose human rights. Enemy lose humanness. So they kind of demonizing at war, and that's there. And so, but as for thee, thou wilt bring glory to the doctrine of the manifold ways. So here says that what you have done can be seen as righteous, justified, and it is in the right direction. Why? Because you protect Buddhism. You protect the teachings of Buddha. And now this is the one I think very important for us to understand in not only Sri Lanka, but Thailand, Burma, Cambodia, Laos, even Mahayana countries. Even some of the Mahayana countries, this idea that in certain circumstances it may be necessary to fight a war. In certain circumstances it may be required to fight a war in defense. And I think that gave the impression. So when the Navy, so this is I think I think it presents Buddhism in a different light, and probably this is the worst place, the worst articulation of justification of war in the Buddhist tradition, and nowhere else in Sri Lanka found this one again. It's only in Mahamana. So there are historical questions. There's a historical question. And also there is a spiritual question, moral question. Say, for us, we think that arahants are enlightened. They are enlightened and they are equal to Buddha. And how these words come from an arahant? That question is there. How they come to this justification? That's a serious question for us. And then, how do they get this karma theory? And how they can kind of make a distinction, having 3 refuge and the 5 pieces make a full human, and all the people who do not have these are non-human. And this is a very interesting issue about relating to minorities and non-Buddhists and so on. And yeah.
Do you think maybe it's
I think maybe it's some influential idea of Hinduism into this kind of wording, because when you classify human being into different level or different classes, it's more like a Hindu concept.
Yeah.
So do you think maybe there's some influential into this kind of
I think you could look at that way, but I don't think so. You could thinking about Indian caste system, you could say, but I don't see any link with that. I will not attribute. But this is surprising to getting this articulation. It's very contradictory to Buddhist message, because dividing humans and non-humans on the basis of Buddhism and then treating them as animals, that's quite contradictory. Now, historical problem is, there are several historical questions, how these enlightened people explain these things like this, and what about these monks like Kittibuddha? Can we blame them? When you think like this, of course this probably influenced Kittibuddha to justify the killing communities is not evil, probably was influenced from this text, I assume. Don't know because he's not living, so he cannot ask, but it's quite possible. But the interesting thing is that where does it come from? And how this version and this theory of karma and so on, and who can say that you can erase the papa, it's not Buddhist notion. If we kill somebody, we never say that you can remedy it, we know it. So there are interesting issues here. I think all of you who are working on peace building, and then kind of issues has to do with minorities, issues have to do with the non-Buddhists, and issues have to do with army and so on. I think you have to think about, what is the link between Buddhism and state, Buddhism and military, Buddhism and minorities, and how we harmonize these views with our text. Because Mahamana is an important part of Thai tradition too. Because Thai tradition is based on Mahamana tradition, and some of this worldview still operate. Of course, didn't happen in Thailand, but nevertheless, this is the framework that we are working on. The kind of idea of kin and sangha, and the three. All these things is the same. So these are some of the issues I think we have to deal with. And I will stop here. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
ที่การสรุปของ
ไม่ต้องหรอกเดี๋ยวค่อยว่ากันเวลาจะหมดแล้วท่านที่เตรียมคำถามมาไงพระถามอะไรไหมคะไมโครโฟน pass on to him please
On the left.
May I ask you both? If you were Thai government, what can you do now for this situation?
If you were Thai government what could you do now
Yes.
for the present situation
Yes, yes.
If that means if I'm the Prime Minister,
the government government led by the Prime Minister
in what situation?
this situation the protest you mean the present protest around your hotel area ร้านหลวง political
I think you have to negotiate with them. I think you have to negotiate with them because they may be wrong, but still a lot of people, thousands of people, and so I think I think anybody, not only Prime Minister, but anybody has to negotiate with them because if they have worries. I mean that's a sensible thing to do. I think sensible thing to do. Talk with them and say that look, this is going to affect to the economy and this is going to affect to the image of country and so on. Convince them that that's the way to do it. I think. That's how I think, but they may have a different view.
Well, I'm not a politician. I keep away from politics because it's too complicated. But I think this is really a separate question from war and peace, which is what we've been talking about, because this is an internal Thai political issue. This is all Thai people. We've been talking about war really between outsiders, somebody attacks you, or foreign invasion or something like that. And I think this is a kind of situation which occurs in many places all over the world every day of the week. People have disagreements, political issues, but the purpose of a democracy is that it gives you a way to answer those questions. You can vote for the people you support. Whether democracy always works perfectly, many times it fails. You can think of even in the United States, they have a democracy, but recently their government was paralyzed completely because of the conflict between the Democrats and the Republicans. The Senate would not approve the lifting of the debt ceiling, so the government shut down. Government offices were closed, lots of official functions just stopped. So this isn't just a Thai problem. Every country has this kind of difficulty. How you resolve it, I think, is by negotiation, hopefully. That's what democracy is for, to avoid sort of, it gives you a channel through which to express your opinion, and through protest and demonstration and so on, hopefully peacefully. That's the way to do it, but I'm not sure that the ethics of war has much to tell you about these political situations.
And I will add one word, few words. I think what I notice is how the KPI responded and so on. I think they have a very tolerant view on this, which is good. I think people seem to be patient and people seem to be accepting the protest. People are kind of in a way maybe supporting, which is actually good for Buddhist nation. Allow people to express their feelings, and that's one way of healing. Actually the protest is in one way of healing. They make this statement. they make their statement and they express their different point of view, and they express their anger in an unharmful way. And I think it kind of, if it is a Buddhist nation and if the majority are Buddhist, it gives us opportunity to be compassionate. It gives us. That's what I think Dalai Lama is. We others we all should propagate. I think it gives an opportunity. It tests our faith. It tests our conviction, and it also tests our, to what extent our states and people and everything integrated the idea of non-violence and so on. Actually, it's a healthy sign of democracy. People protest, and their views should be respected and viewed, of course. And I think it's maybe in some ways it's a good thing. Of course, there's economic impact, but then still we respect their points of view, and that's what counts, no? Respecting other people's points of view. We don't have to accept them that all have to agree with one point of view.
May I ask you how you feel about the monks participate the politics protest? How do you feel the monks?
About the monks' protest. The monks joining the protest. Joining the protest right now, right? In Thailand.
Thailand.
Are they joining?
How do you feel about the monks who are joining
Are they joining?
the protest
Are they
right
joining?
now?
Are they joining?
Take
Yes.
the slide. Take the slide.
Taking side, you
Yes,
mean?
taking
But
side.
there are no monks to go out and join the protest?
The monks join.
Really?
Participate.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
How many?
Almost.
Almost?
Yes.
No, it's lie.
You
How
feel-
many?
It's a lie. When did they go to the protest?
Your opinion, right? Is you are จะถามกันไหมว่าจะถามเขาว่า your opinion if you want go to protest if
I am not going to answer it because it's irrelevant. Maybe you should ask Venerable answer.
Would I answer this?
Well, I can say very quickly, I mean, monks have a vote, yeah, monks can vote.
No, in Thailand, monk cannot vote.
Cannot vote.
Yes.
Monks cannot
Who says they cannot vote?
No,
cannot
we,
go to the election.
By the law, we can't go to election. Yes.
The government doesn't let you vote.
Yes.
No, you
By
mean
the law,
no?
by the law.
They want to prevent monks from taking sides in political way. So they won't allow monks to vote.
Very surprised to learn that.
You've never known that?
And Sri Lanka monks can vote.
Really?
In your country,
That's the difference.
what?
Well,
Yeah, I think the situation is complex, and we learn that there are issues here that monks are not supposed to involve in politics.
Yes.
Monks are not supposed to cast their votes, and there are issues like that. But the thing is that each country is different. We cannot compare Thailand with Sri Lanka. There are historical differences, and the way Buddhism is used. There's a king here and all sorts of issues, and the Sri Lanka was a British colony and so on. So Sri Lankan monks have some freedoms that probably Thai monks do not have, but there are certain circumstances of the country and also the people's vision. Like, for example, I will give you a little bit more on this. Sri Lankan monks' rights to vote and so on did not come in one day. Like in 2004, the monks went to 8 monks were selected to the parliament. And before 2004, nobody expected it. So the Sri Lankan tradition is a very dynamic tradition. It changes. drastically. So I think that Thailand is very cautious. Thailand in general is very cautious about this. I don't think we have to follow each other. I don't think that Thai monks should do exactly what Sri Lankan monks do, because we are operating in different frameworks and different ideas about Buddhism, and so our ambitions may be different. But Sri Lanka monks have involved in many things in different ways, so I don't know to answer whether monks should or not, but definitely there are variations.
Well, I just add that if we go back to the beginning, to the earliest period of Buddhism, it seems to me that the Buddha's ideal was that monks should be apolitical. They shouldn't be involved in politics. And you can see Buddha's relations with kings at the time. He was very careful not to intrude on political issues and to keep his distance. Hence, when, as Venerable Mahinda said in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, when King Ajatasattu sends his ambassador to the Buddha and asks for his opinion about war, the Buddha is very non-committal. He just gives a diplomatic reply, but avoids saying yes or no. And I think perhaps he was concerned at the time about the survival of the Sangha, because he lived in a very dangerous world where there were battles between states, like Magadha was a kingdom which was expanding, kings were fighting each other, and I think the Buddha was very conscious, if I get involved, I take one side or the other side, maybe the Sangha will not survive, because it was very new, very early in its history, and he didn't want to take a risk of the Sangha just being destroyed by one of these kings. So he was very cautious about politics. Now, whether that reason still applies today, I'm not sure. I think we live in more stable societies where there is no reason for monks not to express an opinion. And if monks are citizens of the country like everybody else, it seems to me they have every right to participate in the democratic process of that country and to vote in elections, to be represented by their political MPs or whoever represents them. So I'm very surprised to learn that monks don't vote in Thailand, because it seems to me to be a basic human right that you should be able to vote if you're a citizen of the country. And for a government to take away the right to vote from a section of the population, it seems to me to be very surprising.
60,000.
Yes.
60,000.
60,000 people can't vote. I mean, it surprises me, but I would say if monks feel they have a view to express, why not? That's my opinion.
Last question. What do you think about the two words, peaceful and protest? Because I heard so many people say that they stand for peaceful protest.
Non-violent protest.
What does really ahimsa mean?
Is that the way that the protest in Thailand we can call peaceful protest? Because some say that they just only went out, but only blow the whistle.
I think when we think about protest, they should be non-violent. I think that by definition, that's what we can approve. Non-violent protest, like if we look at Gandhi and Martin Luther and King and others, it's a non-violent one. And I think this time the Bangkok protest has not been violent. it's not been violent. Of course, they have been talking and so on. I think they are doing it very non-violently. And so, as long as they express their opinion non-violently without damaging the government property or attacking the forces, or then it's that's the way the democracy should work. Non-violently you can express. I mean, we have we can go to a public place and speak loudly, and that's fine. And only if we take somebody's life, then it's become a problem. I think what we could have to do is a non-violent protest. So of course, it's nice if we don't have them, but in the real world there are cases that people are not heard. So people maybe don't want to express their point of view. So as long as it doesn't disturb the broader picture, and as long as they are non-violent, I think we have nothing to worry about it.
ทางนู้นขอคำถามหนึ่งได้อีกไหมคะ One more question.
If you judgment of the world, how do you judge Kafarihan for peace and help Thailand and Cambodia to come down about violence and conflict together?
Repeat again. If you are judgment of the world, how do you judge Copenhagen for peace and help the Thailand and Cambodia to come down about violence and conflict together? And the same question. The situation Thai Buddhists and Cambodia Buddhists, how do you think for manage the war in case just Copenhagen?
This is a question about the temple dispute. Pravihan temple.
No. Like the judgment of the world in the next morning.
Yeah. It's about the temple.
Yes.
Well, the issue has gone to court. Both sides have taken their claims to the International Court of Justice. And when you go to a court, you have the chance to express your view. Both sides can put their position, and then the court makes a decision. That's what courts are for. So if you go to court with your case, and you have the chance to present your case, then you have to accept the judgment of the court. So if one side is then not happy with that judgment, perhaps they can appeal against the judgment, or perhaps not. But you don't have the right to then say the court is wrong. You don't like what the court said, and you want to take the law into your own hands. So it seems to me that if you go and look for justice, you ask for justice in a properly constituted international tribunal, then you have to accept the verdicts of that tribunal and accept what it says without reacting violently against it, because you have to lose a case.
I think it is good that it went to International Court of Justice, because that's the way to resolve issues. No? Because if earlier if they could resolve it, it's better. But now both parties have gone to a court, which is good, I think, because that's the way to do it. Because by that way you can save a lot of life, you can save a lot of resources, and then they are neighbors. For Thais, Cambodians are neighbors, and for Cambodians, Thais are neighbors. So Buddhists and Theravada Buddhists, and all sorts of issues that we should work it harmoniously, peacefully, and amicably. And so I think it's good that people look at the court as the final judge, and I think probably Thailand is the best case for it. So you have to look for it as Damein said. I think that's the way to do it, because then there's a goodwill. That's I think the way to do it. I think. Thank you.
Okay, so now Dr. Hansa would like to make conclusion while you two please move over there a while. Okay.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna close the section now. Could you please copy your PowerPoint onto this desktop too? Or you mail it for me later? Okay.
Professor Damein, Professor Mahinda, thank you very much for your presentation today. And I think that is very useful for my students who take more time to learn with you all. 3.5 hours today. Let me conclude everything about presentation today in Thai a little bit with my student. สำหรับพวกเราวันนี้เนี่ยอาจารย์ถือว่าเป็นวันที่โชคดีอย่างมากๆอาจารย์ได้ถือโอกาสมาเป็นผู้สังเกตการแล้วก็เรียนรู้กับพวกเราด้วยเราได้เห็นมุมมองของตะวันตกได้เห็นมุมมองของเวสเทิร์นจาก Professor Kion เวลาที่ Professor Kion มองเรื่องของสงครามและเรื่องการก่อการร้าย War and Terrorism เวลาที่ Professor ท่านมองเรื่องนี้จะมองค่อนข้างกว้างอาศัยแง่มุมจากทั้งเถรวาทอาศัยแง่มุมจากมหายานวัชรยานเอามาประกอบในการอธิบายเรื่อง terrorism คำถามที่เกิดขึ้นเนี่ยมักจะเป็นคำถามที่ฝรั่งเวลาฝรั่งเขามองเขาจะสนใจคำถามมากกว่าคำตอบอันนี้เป็นเครื่องมือของนักปรัชญาอยู่แล้วนักปรัชญาสนใจคำถามมากกว่าคำตอบฉะนั้นเราจะเห็นว่าทุกครั้งที่ Professor Kion ได้นำเสนอแง่มุมบางอย่างก็จะมีทิ้งคำถามเอาไว้ให้เราได้ช่วยกันตอบแต่พอเรามามองฝ้าของท่านมหินดาซึ่งเป็นพระชาวศรีลังกาและเป็นเถรวาทเวลาที่เถรวาทมองคำว่าสงครามก็จะใช้ข้อมูลในพระไตรปิฎกที่เป็นฉบับเดียวกันกับที่เราได้ใช้กันอยู่ตอนนี้ข้อมูลจะอ้างอิงแบบเดียวกันฉะนั้นพอเราพูดถึงคำว่าพระเอามือไปรูปหน้าให้ทหารเอามือไปให้กำลังใจรดน้ำมนต์ให้ทหารไปรบที่ของพระวิหารไม่ ไม่รู้ว่าพระไทยหรือพระกัมพูชาท่านก็จะตั้งคำถามว่าเป็นไปได้ยังไงก็ในเมื่อหลักการนี้ผิดหลักการที่เรียกว่าวินัยในทางพุทธศาสนาพระต้องไม่เข้าไปเกี่ยวข้องกับกองทัพไม่เข้าไปดูการจัดไล่คนของกองทัพการที่พระเข้าไปแบบนั้นทำให้เกิดคำถามว่าแล้วในทางวินัยจะตอบยังไงอันนี้คือสิ่งที่เราได้เห็นมุมมองของโลกสายเถรวาทเวลามองเรื่องสงครามเวลาดร.คีโอนตั้งคำถาม just war สงครามที่เป็นธรรมเราจะเห็นว่าเวลาที่ดร.คีโอนหยิบมาภาพสุดท้ายอาจารย์สนใจมากคือภาพของดาไลลามะภาพของโอบามาและตรงกลางโอบามาทรงร่างของท่านดาไลลามะแล้วดร.คีโอนก็จบอยู่แค่นั้นอะไรคือ middle way ถ้าเราตั้งคำถามดีๆเนี่ยถ้าเราตอบดีๆเราจะเห็นว่าโอบามาเป็นผู้นำทางการเมืองท่านดาไลลามะเป็นผู้นำทางจิตวิญญาณเป็น spiritual leader ดาไลลามะเป็น spiritual leader โอบามาเป็น political leader perspective หรือมุมมองของคนที่เป็นผู้นำทางการเมืองผู้นำทางการเมืองเนี่ยเขามักจะมีความคิดว่าคำว่า just war คือฆ่าเพื่อปกป้องฆ่าเพื่อปกป้องตัวเองแต่โลกทางจิตวิญญาณจะบอกว่าการปกป้องที่ดีที่สุดต้องไม่มีการฆ่าเกิดขึ้นผู้นำทางการเมืองชอบพูดว่าการที่จะปกป้องได้ดีที่สุดคือต้องฆ่าแม้จะต้องเสียเลือดเสียเนื้อก็ต้องทำเพื่อปกป้องแต่ผู้นำทางศาสนาจะยืนยันว่าการปกป้องที่ดีที่สุดคือต้องไม่มีการฆ่าหรือเสียชีวิตและเลือดเนื้อฉะนั้นถ้าเรากลับมาทางโลกของพุทธศาสนาศาสนาพุทธที่เป็นพุทธแบบ Early Buddhism พุทธจริงๆจะปฏิเสธสงครามและความรุนแรงทุกชนิดปฏิเสธแบบ Absolute ด้วยปฏิเสธแบบ 100% เราปฏิเสธสงครามความรุนแรงการฆ่าการก่อให้เกิดเลือดศาสนาพุทธปฏิเสธ 100%ศาสนาพุทธจะไม่บอกว่าเราฆ่าเพราะ compassion ฆ่าด้วยความกรุณาฆ่าเพราะ mercy เพราะความรักเราจะฆ่าเพราะ emptiness ฆ่าด้วยจิตว่าเราจะฆ่าเพื่อปกป้องศาสนาและประเทศชาติของเราศาสนาพุทธมองว่าการฆ่าผิดทุกประตูไม่มีข้ออ้างใดๆทั้งสิ้นแต่มักจะมีบางคนบางกลุ่มพยายามที่จะตีความหลักการทางศาสนาหรือภาษาอังกฤษใช้คำว่า abuse พยายามจะ abuse คือปิดหลักการของพุทธศาสนาไปเข็นฆ่าทำลายล้างคนอื่นเช่นฆ่าคอมมิวนิสต์ไม่บาปเช่นฆ่าเพื่อปกป้องศาสนาของเรานั่นถือว่าเป็นข้ออ้างถ้าน้อมนำกลับมาสู่หลักการทางพุทธศาสนาแล้วการฆ่าทุกชนิดเป็นบาปทั้งสิ้นด้วยเหตุนี้นี่เองเราจึงถือว่าศาสนาพุทธเราจะไม่ฆ่าเองและไม่ใช้ให้คนอื่นไปฆ่าด้วยวันนี้เราคงได้มุมมองที่ดีได้มุมมองทั้งสองโลกทั้งโลกของตะวันตกทั้งโลกของตะวันออกเห็นมุมมองของที่ดร.ดิมินกิโอนพูดถึงมุมมองของนักการเมืองพูดถึงมุมมองของคนที่เป็นผู้นำทางศาสนาและสุดท้ายคำถามที่ ถามแล้ววิทยากรทั้งคู่ตอบได้แล้วน่าชื่นชมมากก็คือ กรณีปราสาทเขาพระวิหารท่านมหินดาบอกว่าเราเป็นพี่เป็นน้องกันเราอยู่บ้านใกล้เรือนเคียงกันและกันเราไม่สามารถยกประเทศหนีออกไปให้ไกลแสนไกลได้เดิมทีเราเป็นพี่น้องกันแต่เพราะลัทธิล่าอาณานิคมเข้ามาเราจึงถูกแบ่งแม่น้ำโขงพี่น้องของเราแบ่งกัมพูชาด้วยสันปันน้ำแต่ความรักความปรารถนาดีความเป็นพี่เป็นน้องความเป็นญาติแบ่งไม่ได้ฉะนั้นไม่ว่าจะเป็นเหตุการณ์ทางการเมืองเหตุการณ์ทางกัมพูชาท่านมินดาเสนอว่าคุยกันเถอะยังไงก็ตามทีขอให้หันหน้าเข้ามาคุยกันหาทางออกร่วมกันอะไรยอมได้อะไรยอมไม่ได้อย่าดึงให้สุดโต่งท่านพูดเอาไว้น่าสนใจก็คือว่าอย่าสร้างเงื่อนไขให้เกิดการเผชิญหน้าโดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งเงื่อนไขที่สุดโต่งพระพุทธเจ้าตรัสว่าพระพุทธเจ้าปฏิเสธส่วนสุดทั้งสองด้านตึงไปก็ไม่ดีหย่อนไปก็ไม่ดีคุยกันตรงกลางที่ต่างฝ่ายต่างสามารถรับได้สุดท้ายท่านเดเมนคิโอนพูดเอาไว้น่าสนใจกรณีศาลตัดสินมาจะทำยังไงท่านบอกว่าเมื่อเรานำเรื่องนี้ขึ้นสู่ศาลแล้วศาลตัดสินยังไงศาลโลกมองยังไงท่านเดเมนคิโอนศาสตราจารย์เดเมนคิโอนท่านให้แง่มุมไว้น่าสนใจมากว่าก็เมื่อเรานำเรื่องนี้ขึ้นสู่ศาลให้พิจารณาแล้วศาลตัดสินยังไงก็ควรจะเป็นไปตามนั้นนี่คือมุมมองของโลกตะวันตกที่เขามองว่าเมื่อมีเกณฑ์เมื่อมีกฎหมายเมื่อมีแนวทางเราก็ต้องยึดความเป็นไปในสิ่งนั้นส่วนเราจะทำหรือไม่ทำถือว่าเป็นมุมมองของฝรั่งท่านหนึ่งที่ให้แนวทางกับพวกเราทุกคนวันนี้อาจารย์มั่นใจเหลือเกินว่าพวกเราทุกท่านที่ทำงานด้านนี้วันนี้เรามาเรียนรู้แง่มุมได้มาเรียนรู้แนวทางแง่มุมแนวทางที่เราได้เรียนทั้งหมดจะเป็นเครื่องมือสำคัญซึ่งจะนำไปสู่การปฏิบัติต่อไปในอนาคตการทำงานด้านสันติภาพไม่ง่ายเพราะถ้าง่ายมีคนทำหมดแล้วในขณะที่เราทำงานด้านสันติภาพมีบางคนชื่นชมท่านที่ท่านทำงานมีบางคนพร้อมจะกระแนะกระแหนท่านเวลาท่านทำงานคำถามคือท่านจะทำยังไงขอให้พวกเรามั่นใจในสิ่งที่เราทำทุกท่านที่นั่งอยู่ในห้องนี้หลายท่านเวลามองพวกเราที่นั่งอยู่ในห้องนี้นึกว่าพวกเรามานั่งอยู่สบายๆแต่ไม่รู้หรอกว่าออกจากห้องนี้ไปแล้วเราทำงานหนักขนาดไหนเราลงพื้นที่ทำงานยากลงด้วยความลำบากขนาดไหนเราทำงานอยู่ตามมุมต่างๆในองค์กรต่างๆเราทุ่มเทขนาดไหนในการที่จะพดุงความรักความปรารถนาดีกับเพื่อนของเราฉะนั้นขอให้เรานำสิ่งเหล่านั้นมาเป็นแรงบันดาลใจในการที่จะทำงานเพื่อคนอื่นพระพุทธเจ้าแม้พระองค์จะเป็นพระพุทธเจ้าไม่ใช่ว่าใครทุกคนจะรักพระองค์มีบางคนที่ไม่ชอบมีบางคนมาด่ามีบางคนโกรธมีบางคนเกลียดบางครั้งเวลาพระพุทธเจ้าไปเจรจาไปจัดการความขัดแย้งบางกรณีก็ไม่ประสบความสำเร็จขนาดพระพุทธเจ้ายังมีคนด่ามีคนว่าขนาดพระพุทธเจ้าเวลาลงมือจัดการความขัดแย้งบางกรณีก็ไม่ประสบความสำเร็จเนื่องจากผู้กรณีมีความเกลียดชังกันอย่างรุนแรงถามว่าทำไมพระองค์ท้อถอยและไม่อยากจะทำหน้าที่ต่อละ ถ้าเรามีความมุ่งมั่นในการที่จะทำเพื่อคนอื่นแม้บางกรณีจะไม่ประสบความสำเร็จแต่เราได้ทำหน้าที่อย่างสุดชีวิตแล้วและผมก็มั่นใจว่าท่านเมื่อเรียนรู้เมื่อเข้าใจเมื่อรับพลังหรือลมหายใจของพระองค์มาแล้วจะเดินหน้าต่อไปสร้างสันติภาพให้เกิดขึ้นไม่ว่าจะเป็นชีวิตของท่านเองไม่ว่าจะเป็นครอบครัวท่านไม่ว่าจะเป็นหมู่บ้านท่านชุมชนท่านองค์กรท่านขอให้ท่านตั้งใจทำงานวันนี้ขอบคุณทุกท่านและก็หวังใจว่าท่านจะได้ประโยชน์จากการได้รับรู้ได้เรียนรู้จากศาสตราจารย์ทั้งสองท่าน Again, I would like to thank both Professor Mahinda and Professor Damein who take more time staying with us here. We are all so happy. We are all learn a lot of things from both of you, and I really hope that we not just listen to you here, but we will apply everything you give your knowledge and experiences to us to use in our life, to use in our family, to use our community. And let me say thank you again for both of you. Thank you very much. ของมอบให้ท่านอาจารย์ Professor Mahinda กล้องมาถ่ายอาจารย์หน่อยครับถ่ายทั้งProfessor, thank you very much. ถ่ายรูปด้วยกันมอบมอบให้อาจารย์อันนี้ใช่ปะของอาจารย์